Mahomes at bay.
The Tampa Bay Bucs, Super Bowl 55.
Hello and welcome to the Bucs Banter Podcast. This is our 58th episode, our Shaq Barrett episode, if you will. And I'm joined this evening by both of my co-hosts, Scott Capron and Bodan Yard. We have a special guest this evening in what is his first appearance on the Bucs Banter Podcast, but hopefully not his last. He's been covering the Bucs and the NFL for a number of years now. He's one of the most talented writers in the business, currently covering both the Bucs and Commanders for Sports Illustrated. He is also the host of the extremely popular Locked On Bucs podcast at DHarrison82 on Twitter. Welcome to the show, David Harrison.
What's up, guys? Appreciate the invite. Appreciate you having me in.
Hey, man. Happy to have you on, David. And, I love learning from you, working with you now at SI and getting to read your writing on the regular. Not like I wasn't reading it before, but I get to learn from you a little bit. So that's nice.
Yeah, anything I can do to help anybody else, I'm happy to do it. I appreciate you.
And I'm sure many of those listening are very familiar with your work, David. But for anyone who isn't, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you ended up covering the Bucs? Like, what led you to covering the Buccaneers? I assume Bucs Nation was where you first started, but I'll let you kind of take the floor and tell us.
Yeah, Bucs Nation is not at all where I started. So when I decided to get into sports media, I think I still had about 5 or 6 years left before I could retire out of the Army, and that's what I did for the first 20 years of my adult life. And honestly, before that, I was just an Ohio State fan on Twitter who did what most college football fans, especially Ohio State fans, honestly do, and talk trash to other non-Ohio State fan bases and all that, which is why William Golston has me blocked on Twitter. That's great. I just sent out a tweet and I said, I'm trying to break into sports media. Like, if anybody has any advice or opportunities, I'm a hard worker. I think I'm a quick learner, stuff like that. And I got hit up by someone, and I wish I remember his name now, but he ran his own website called profootballspot.com. And he hit me up. He's like, hey, man, he's like, perfect site for you. You can learn. I got some experienced writers, some not some experienced writers, only catches. I can't pay you. He was hoping to build it into something bigger and eventually be able to pay us. I said, look, I'm literally just looking for experience. So I said, yeah, I'm down. He gave me a list of teams that he needed coverage on. And honestly, the Buccaneers are just the team that I probably knew the best out of the available options. I don't remember all of them now, but the Buccaneers was probably just the one that I knew the most of because I was a big Rondé Barber fan. Obviously, I knew about the Buccaneers defense back then. I was a big Warwick Dunn fan. So on and so forth. So I just kind of had some knowledge about the Buccaneers team. So I picked them, went there, met Mike Kewok, who's still a good friend of mine. He's actually a writer at BucsNation.com right now, and Gabe Burns, who's actually now one of the main sports writers for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, covers the Braves, the Falcons, all that stuff. Met some other guys. John Ledger is probably the most famous of them. He was working there at the time, and I actually did some draft work for him. He sent me to the 2015 Ohio State Pro Day. Some other guys are just kind of out and about in the sports world. Eventually, Pro Football Spot kind of went under. The creator, he went back to, I think he's like a lawyer, a super rich guy, basically just living the dream. And then Fansided hit me up and joined Fansided, and that's where I had the unfortunate pleasure of meeting James Yarko. We teamed up there with the great Alan Schechter, may he rest in peace, and he put us together and really kind of made us a team. Bailey Adams eventually jumped on. Now he's with Pewter Report. And, then this year jumped over to Sports Illustrated for BucsGameDay.com. Bailey went to Pewter Report, and James is still over there running the SB Nation staff. So, that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
That's all super interesting, David. I didn't hear anything after the Ohio State aspect.
No, most people don't.
I really can't kind of get over it. So that's great that you did all that other stuff. No, I mean, we can let it go for now, but wow, what a haymaker off the top. Collin, maybe a little preparation. I don't know. Maybe just, dropping this bomb on us. Of course, I go and grab a Michigan hoodie out of everything too that I went to.
Live it up. Hey. Live it up.
Yeah, 42-27. Anyway, but that's all. Those are some great. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I mean the fact that you kind of stumbled into the Bucks is great too, because it's kind of just worked out for all the Bucks fans, so who get to consume your work.
Too
So
kind.
you're in Tampa. You're
Mhm.
covering day one of the joint practices today. How hot was it out there? First of all, David, and just what were some of the biggest observations? Obviously, there were some injury issues. I don't know if
Mhm.
you have any updates on that, but anything else that jumped out at you, feel free to just fill us in here, man.
Yeah, so today was actually one of the better weather days. I mean, the breeze was coming through, and there was a little bit of cloud cover here and there. So, excuse me. But the day, I mean, it was electric, and from the beginning, the Bucks came out, stretched out. They did a little bit of install, a little bit of walkthrough work before they really started hitting the practice. The Dolphins were kind of doing their thing on the side as well, and then they came together in the middle of the field. And again, nobody really knows, what was actually said, but the impression or the understanding, the assumption rather, is that we're, is, hey, let's be clean, let's give each other some good work, let's be physical, compete, but remember that it's a brotherhood and all those things. And I was making jokes with James when we were recording our episode. I said, next thing I know, I'm getting tweets that Leonard Fournette just jaw-jacked Christian Watkins. So apparently that didn't last very, very long. But James was over on the offensive side. So the Bucks offense, Dolphins defense were on the field nearest to the fans, which is great because obviously, that's what they want to see. Bucks defense and Dolphins offense started on the middle field. I was watching the Bucks defense, so I was there. James was at the offense. So that great play of the day that Julio made, mossing one of the young Miami DBs. I didn't get to see that. James got to see that. He got to see Cade Otton laying out for a pass as well, a standout from Cade. But for the defense in those sessions, playing physical, playing fast, and I think that's really the biggest thing because this Miami Dolphins offense, that's what they're going to do all year. They're going to challenge people's speed and they're going to challenge their conditioning. And I mean, the Dolphins played sideline to sideline all the way up and down the field, crossing patterns, misdirection, all of it. And the Bucks defense held up very, very well. And I think probably the most encouraging things that you could probably take away from it is the fact that Levante David and Devin White were on the field participating, but they were actually out on some of the first team reps because they were just resting. You don't want to push your guys too hard and risk losing one of those starters. So KJ Britt, guys like him, Grant Stewart was in there with the locks flowing, and they were still holding up, even going up against the Dolphins first team offense. They were still playing in there as linebackers and doing a really good job. KJ Britt, a couple of examples, made some really smart checks on the line at the line of scrimmage, really directing the defensive line. Ended up filling the run fits really well. Stopped an edge attempt, an outside sweep attempt on a run, but then also stuffed it in between the tackles run as well. The Dolphins did a little bit of damage. They got a couple edge runs on them. There was one play where Levante got sealed off, and Chase Edmonds was able to break it out and get a pretty good run out of them. But for the most part, what you want to see against an offense like that, keeping the lid on them. Kept everything inside of them. Tyreek Hill didn't have any, super highlight plays where he's running, 60 yards down the field or anything like that. And honestly, I was kind of waiting for it because they ran a lot of single high coverage with that. And when you got a guy like Tyreek Hill and then you got Jalen Waddle on the field as well, and even Trent Sherfield, who has some underrated speed, you're almost kind of waiting for that moment where someone just gets caught slipping a little bit and they get that big play, but it really never came. And then finally, rookie Zion McCollum stayed with his guys really, really well. And even in one-on-ones, I was going up against a guy, gave him 4 or 5 shakes. He didn't bite on any of them. And was just in great position to make the play. So from the veterans to the young guys, you just have to really like what you see from the team. And then the defense comes away with 2 interceptions in the process.
No bias there in the Zion McCollum reference. I know that's your boy, David. You wanted
Zion.
him.
Yeah.
You wanted him in the draft. You got your guy. That's awesome. You caught up with him today, right?
I caught up with him today and yesterday. Yeah. So Zion's, he's a great guy, and that's kind of one thing I was telling James. I was able to get here a day before him, so I was able to kind of tell him some of the things of Zion. I mean, he's a rookie, so he gets coached hard sometimes. But you just tell he loves the game. And as soon as that helmet comes off, he's smiling. As soon as the helmet goes on, he's smiling. Like this kid is he's just living the dream, as they say. And takes all the coaching to heart, goes out there and puts it to practice. And I was talking to Matty Matera from Pewter Report today, and we're just kind of, I don't say in awe, but we're just, kind of admiring the fact that all the tools are there. You can see the speed, the footwork, the agility, the body control, his ability to pace and stay with his receivers through every part of the route, from whether it's the release or the stem or the break. And what you really want to start seeing, maybe, from an improvement standpoint, is a little bit more physicality at the line of scrimmage. But I think that'll come with confidence, because it's kind of like basketball, right? You reach, I teach, and you don't want to, as a rookie, you don't want to reach too far in press coverage, and then you end up getting burned because if the guy gets off the release like that too well, there's nothing you can really do after that point. So I think that will come with confidence, and it's probably going to take a full year or two to really get completely there. But you definitely see the athleticism and the potential. And I mean, look, he had some wins against Jalen Waddle and even Tyreek Hill today. And I talked to him walking off the field, not a full blown, recorded or anything, but just kind of catching up with him and talking to him. And I said to him, I was like, man, I was like, where's the confidence? I was like, because you've been going up against red jerseys, this whole time. And that's great. And you're going up against teammates, really good teammates, and you're getting some wins. I was like, well, what's it feel like to get on there with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and still have wins against opponents that really want to go out there and make you look bad? And he just had that smile, and he's just like, yeah, I mean, he's like, that really boosts the confidence. So he can't wait for tomorrow, and then even more for Saturday.
That's huge. And like, just of all, I mean, any rookie can get exposed, and once you actually get out there, it's just totally different, right? But especially someone in the secondary, it's like, okay, no, I'm actually out there. And just as David said, it's like, how'd you actually feel being out there against Waddle and Hill? It's just a different animal, right? It's just a different beast. Yeah. So for him to gain confidence, see what it's actually like, and know that he can go out there and actually perform, like, I know it's early, but that's huge.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It really is. And it does help the confidence. And again, he every time he gets a chance to go up against some of the top competition in the NFL, and, he wasn't on every rep, or anything like that, just here and there. But then, you also see the trust in the defensive staff, or at least the willingness to go out there and test them. Because, again, even when Zion and the second team defense is on the field, they're still running single high coverage against a lot of speed. So, they're leaving Zion out there by himself with very little top coverage. So it speaks a lot to what the coaches see in him, and also what he's confident in himself.
For sure.
And David, did you get you mentioned a lot of lateral or horizontal plays, get those guys open in space is surely going to be a big part of their offensive scheme. Hopefully they have one offensive coordinator in Miami this year, not two, make things a little easier on Tua. But how did Tua's arm look?
His arm looked good. I mean, his arm looked pretty much what it is. He didn't take a lot of deep shots. I'm hoping to see a little bit more of that tomorrow, hopefully. But I think really what stood out the most for me for Tua was his decision making. He looks like a quarterback that has gotten smarter over the offseason from his previous NFL experience. And there was one specific play so they did one session of 11 on 11s where they were moving the ball. So as they gained yards, they were letting them move, and they got towards kind of in the red zone. If memory serves, they're probably around the 12 or 15 yard line. So you have there's no kicking in that type of a drill. So you've got 4 chances basically try to get into the end zone. Now the Buccaneers defense ends up, coming up with the win. They go through 4 plays. They don't get in the end zone. So they kind of reset the ball and start going through drills again. So that's the positive for Bucs fans, right? But from a Tua standpoint, there's one specific play where he drops back, eventually the pass protection breaks down. He starts getting pressure. So he kind of steps up, and probably, in earlier days, that's a point where he basically tries to tuck the ball and run, but he's trying to sit there and keep his eyes downfield, keep his feet moving. And I just happen to basically be standing right in front of him. And as he finds a space in the pocket to step up into, I'm watching him, and I see his eyes scan across the field, and he finds a guy, number 85, I believe, for the Dolphins, River Craycraft. I'm sure I butchered that. Sorry. But number 85 for the Miami Dolphins is coming across formation. Carlton Davis is in trail technique. They're just playing backyard football at that point in time. But Carlton was right with him. And Tua decides to try to put the ball in there, try to give his guy a chance to make a play. And he's on the move, off balance. I mean, his body was about in a 45-degree angle at the point, but he throws it in there left-handed to the right side of the end zone. And, it fell incomplete because Carlton was in great coverage. But the great thing about that throw from an analysis standpoint is the only person that could have made a play on that ball was his guy. Either his guy was coming down with it with a touchdown, or they were going to get the next play. And that's exactly what happened. They got the next play. Goes to Mike Gesicki. I can't remember who the Bucs DB was that was on coverage, but he actually got beat. Mike Gesicki dropped the ball. But of course, DB celebrate that anyway. So
yeah, no kidding. So you've mentioned Carlton Davis. Obviously, it sounds like he caught your attention today, just looking really ready to play, and he's talked it up a little bit this preseason, this offseason. But you like to see that from him, so it's great to see he's backing it up. The unofficial depth chart was released this week, and Sean Murphy-Bunting was listed as a CB2. I'm curious to get your thoughts on that, David. I would have expected Jamel Dean's name to be on right there. You have more history with how this works, and there's some politics involved, there's some mind games. I don't know if that's at play. Do the Bucs coaches really like Sean Murphy-Bunting that much? What's your take on that, and how did those guys look today?
I mean, they've looked good, you know. I mean, as far as like whether or not they really like Sean Murphy-Bunting over Jamel Dean, that's not something they're going to tell us, you know, freely. They're not going to tell me that freely. They might tell Greg Auman that freely and let him sit on that for a while and use it when he deems it necessary. But they're not going to tell me that freely. I can tell you that. But from reps, right? Reps are more important than position on depth chart, to be quite honest with you. Because I mean, you got like Tyler Johnson might be listed on the third team, you know, wide receiver group or something like that. But he's out there running with Tom Brady. He's out there, you know, when Cam Brate's on the field, stuff like that from time to time as well. So. But Jamel Dean is, I mean, he's running with the twos. Sean Murphy-Bunting is running with the ones. You know what I mean? And that's pretty much been consistent. You know, while I've been here, and then from what I understand from before I got here. And I think really it's just at the end of the day, you know, it's all about opportunities. And Sean, you know, now he knows like he's for whatever reason it is, he's getting that first opportunity to go out there and prove himself. Jamel's going to get his opportunities as well. There's going to be time where all three of them, you know, CD3 and both those guys are going to be on the field as well. So they're going to have plenty of opportunities. I don't think Jamel is really too worried about his positioning on the depth chart. He's more concerned about just doing his job and playing his game. Because honestly, both those guys have all the potential in the world. And if they both go out there and they perform up to potential, they're both going to get nice contracts this coming off season. It's just most likely one of them is going to get one to stay in Tampa. One is going to get one to go somewhere else.
I'm glad you said that. I got to ask, which one, based on what you've seen from them so far in their careers, or maybe just your hunch from knowing the game, which one would you rather stay in Tampa, David, if you had your way? I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah, I mean, I like both guys, you know what I mean? But if it were me and I had to make that decision right now, I would probably go with Jamel, which is why it is a little bit of a surprise to me to see Jamel is on the second team and Sean is ahead of him. And believe me, you're not alone. I'm not alone. There are plenty of guys that are around the team that were also surprised to see that as well. So I think Jamel, just the top line speed, the top end speed, and then he's got a little bit of length, maybe not as much as Sean Murphy-Bunting, but I think overall from a holistic standpoint, you just see a better, more well-rounded cornerback with a little bit of a higher ceiling than Sean. But like I said, they're both really good guys. And I mean, at the end of the day, like that's a feather in the cap of Jason Light, because he found both those guys. And I remember that year, I had to Google Sean Bunting. You know, he was before he added the Murphy. I had to Google Sean Bunting because we'd studied DBs all offseason and never even looked at the kid. So I mean, that's just a testament to the Buccaneers scouting department and to Jason Light.
Well said. Shout out to our guy Caleb Skinner, one of the writers for Bucs Game Day. He's checking us out. Do y'all think the backyard football play that Mahomes used, which Cheetah benefited from, will translate for Hill over to Tua? Anyone want to take that one? Any thoughts?
If I was a Dolphins fan, I'd be very worried if Tua starts doing Mahomes impressions.
I agree.
Yeah.
The lack of arm strength relative to Mahomes and like this isn't a dig, but Tua is no Patrick Mahomes. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's just that's not the case at all. If a big portion of the Hill signing for the Dolphins was like a potential high ceiling improv between him and Tua, then I think they're looking in the wrong direction. I think it's going to be a ton of bubble screens, getting them the ball in space. Maybe even Tyreek's going to be returning kicks and doing whatever they can to get him the ball right. But like short answer, no, it won't be the same as it was in KC with him.
But I think just coming out, like a lot of people thought Tua would be like this kind of Russell Wilson impersonator. So I can kind of see what he's getting at. Where, okay, you're scrambling around a little bit more, but I think from what we've seen, we know that that's not true. So to go even a step higher and say it's Mahomes now,
that's so. I totally agree, Bo, and that thought kind of popped in my mind while David was talking about Tua in the offense. Like, don't you feel like he's a step slower, a little bit less athletic looking than we thought he was going to be coming out of Alabama? Yeah. Like, not that I thought he was going to be a burner or like a pull it down and run, but I thought he would be able to make more guys miss than he has. Maybe he's almost trying to prove something that he doesn't need to do, and he's taking an extra second with the ball to try to find someone downfield. But I thought he would be more, I don't know exactly like in terms of how elusive he would be, but to me, he's kind of just like Derek Carr. Like, he can make someone miss theoretically, but it's not really part of his game at all. And I feel like I think I got that wrong. I thought he was going to be able to make more people miss when he actually stepped right into the league. But
David, did you catch any of the offense today with your own eyes, or were you and James are kind of split up? Like, I got to ask that before I ask about a few names, because I don't want to be unfair and ask about that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Eventually, both, the teams just completely merged into the front field, the field that's right there by the bleachers, and they ran a few sessions, and then they ran the biggest thing is they ran 2-minute drills against each other to wrap up the practice. So it did eventually all come together, and I saw the Bucs offense against the Dolphins defense and Dolphins offense against Bucs defense.
Awesome. Well, while we're talking about arm strength and Tua Tagovailoa, I might as well ask. I mean, this week, Clyde Christensen, famed quarterback coach, currently for the Buccaneers and with Tom Brady, apparently he said Brady's arm looks the best he's ever seen. Are you in a position to confirm or contradict such a statement based on what you saw today?
His arm is live. I will tell you, Tom Brady's arm is live. Like it's about as good as it gets. I mean, I'm in a blessed position where I also cover the Washington Commanders and I cover them very, very closely because I live in that area. So I'm watching Carson Wentz, I'm watching Taylor Heineke, and I'm watching Sam Howell. And the thing about those three quarterbacks is they're all very different quarterbacks from an arm talent standpoint, from a mechanics standpoint, and then from a way that they play the game based on their, because of their physical attributes. Sam Howell is about as tall as I am, and he's got a howitzer on his shoulder, whereas Taylor Heineke is probably about an inch or two taller, a little bit more athletic, but his arm strength isn't quite there. So he's got to play the game differently than other quarterbacks do. And then Carson is the towering guy who's also got the arm, but at the same time, sometimes he's got placement issues and all these things. So it's just a very interesting dynamic of how each quarterback is different. And then I get to take those three guys, well, and Cole Kelly too, but he's no longer with the team for a very good reason. But I take those guys, and then I get to come to Tampa, and you get to see the greatest ever dude. You get to see Tom Brady and some of the mental processing that makes him so great, and the arm. And then Kyle Trask and the young guy who in comparison is struggling and still trying to get his feet under him. And then Blaine Gabbert, who's kind of that middle ground, between all the guys. Like you have 6 quarterbacks, Blaine is kind of that middle ground guy where he brings a little bit of flavor of all of them. And then surprisingly enough, actually for me, to be honest with you, he's the loudest of all of them. And I had to take a double check because I heard somebody cussing somebody out during one of the drills, and I didn't see any coaches' mouths moving, and it was Blaine Gabbert. So that was actually, I don't know. I thought Blaine was just a super nice guy. You know what I mean? And apparently he's quite the drill sergeant. So it's a very interesting dynamic. But yeah, man, I mean, Tom looks great.
Who knew that?
Yeah, it surprised me. I mean, I don't know if it's a daily occurrence. It just maybe I just caught him on a bad day. But Tom's arm is real, man. I mean, I was watching the defense. And I joked that Buccaneers fans, they kept cheering, while the Bucs offense was working against the Dolphins defense, they kept cheering and distracting me from my job. And I just happened to look over for a play because they were kind of taking a break over here. And I see Tom overthrow Tyler Johnson, which obviously you don't want, right? But the way he overthrew him, I mean, that ball had to have sailed probably about 20, 25 yards, to get to Tyler. And if Tyler doesn't get up enough, and credit to him for climbing the ladder the way that he did, but if Tyler doesn't get up enough and get a hand on the ball, I mean, that thing is probably going to sail. It's about the 15-yard line. I mean, and you're like, that's a bad throw. You know what I mean? Like that's what he does on a bad throw, on a misfire. Imagine what he can do for real. And then there was another pass. I can't remember who the target was, but it was between 2 linebackers. And I mean, you know what? It was it was Giovanni Bernard. And I felt bad for that man's hands. Like that had to hurt. Like there's no way that ball didn't hurt. I mean, his arm is live, man, and he looks really good.
Yep. That's just so fucking good to hear. You know what I mean? Like I know that's beyond like stating the obvious, and like of course, and we expect it, and of course, but he's 45. You know what I mean? Like eventually the arm isn't going to be there, but that's all we need from him from his game. Like we know the decision making, and he's never been a runner, so it's irrelevant. And the fact that he's still doing this and ripping people's fingers off or whatever, and being one of the most accurate quarterbacks of all time, it's just unbelievable. And it's just exactly what you want to hear from a Bucs perspective every August. It's like, oh, okay, it's still there. Good. Let's go. We're ready.
Absolutely.
David, I want to ask, did you see Russell Gage go down today? Like, are you concerned? No, you didn't see it.
No, I was on the defensive end. That was the one-on-ones. Well, I mean, honestly, both. Honestly, that was during the one-on-one, so we had split up. By then, James saw it. I didn't see it, and I talked to a couple other people who saw it, and they were kind of bouncing around a little bit. And really at the most right now, all you can say is he reached for his hamstring. So you don't want to go too far beyond that. But Ian Rappaport was in Tampa today, and I know there was a tweet that came out later that he kind of confirmed. I know Jeff Darlington had kind of said something earlier. He was down there today as well, and that basically it's not feared to be serious. Now I don't expect to see Russell this week, Saturday. I maybe for the Titans joint practices, just because you do want to get him out there against live competition if you can, as he's continuing to learn the system. But honestly, Russell, he looks good and he fits what they're asking him to do in the offense. So I think, if it's me and I'm making the decisions in this case, which I'm obviously not, I put him on the shelf until he's absolutely 100%, like not even just feeling better, feeling good. You know what I mean? Because again, just seeing him in the short period of work that I've been able to see so far, he knows his role. The Bucs know what they want to do with him, and it works, and that's the most important thing. So they can use this time to get Julio Jones more spun up. They can use this time as Chris Godwin continues to move in, but then also, they've got a very hard decision or 2 or 3 coming in that wide receiver room. So they just give more and more reps to some of these other guys that start figuring out who it is they want to keep, who it is they think they might be able to stash on the practice squad, and then who it is that maybe they flip for a 7th or 6th round pick.
Any leans there, David, as to what will go on with that? I know.
Yeah. Jalen, I think Jalen is probably so it depends on how people feel about Scotty Miller, right? I know some people think Scotty's a bubble guy. I don't look at Scotty as a bubble guy. So for me, your roster already has Mike, Chris, Russell, Julio, and Scotty. For me, those 5 to me are in. And so that's kind of where, the conversation starts. So if you agree or disagree with Scotty's assessment, that's fine. So I would say he's probably the first guy in. And then you're looking at 2 more receivers, I imagine. So you got Tyler, Jalen, Cyril Grayson, who we talked to today as well. Devin Thompkins is making a lot of noise out there. You've got a very, very hard decision, and they're all performing. That's the great thing, but also the really hard thing is they're all doing. Look, guys, Devin Tompkins got first-team reps at times against the Miami Dolphins today. So, this is an undrafted kid out of Utah State who's out there with Tom Brady. You know what I mean? And that's, so in our episode dropping, it's dropping right now, actually, and then dropping in the morning audio-wise, we kind of state that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers won day 1. Both teams did well. Both teams have things that they can hang their hat on, but the Buccaneers won. One, because of the takeaways. The Buccaneers had more takeaways, stuff like that, but then also the 2-minute drill. But then you think about this, the Miami Dolphins, they had a decent day, but they're doing it with their full complement of weapons. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers did it. Your number 1 receiver out there is Scotty Miller or Tyler Johnson. You know what I mean? And Cam Brate didn't suit up either. So your number 1 tight end is Kyle Rudolph or Cade Otton. You know what I mean? Guys who have literally less than 2 weeks of experience in the system. So, it's amazing that they were able to compete the way that they were given the circumstances that they're in.
I love that you brought up
on that, Miami.
I love that you brought up Devin Thompkins because, I literally had a question. I was like, is this kid for real? Obviously he was prolific as hell in college, but he's 5'8". Between him and Darden, could they both make the team? Is it actually possible? Because he's been flashing all over the place, right? That's all you've been hearing.
I've said multiple times, just carry 12 of them. I don't know. Figure it out. Carry 12 and figure it out later. You know what I mean?
Good problem to have. Good problem to have.
It is. It's a great problem to have. The problem is everybody knows you have it. So, even a guy like Devin Thompkins, the thing about the NFL, there's receivers everywhere, right? But there's also receivers getting hurt every day. So you look at a guy like Devin Tompkins or Tyler Johnson, there's not, and I've actually had this conversation with Washington beat reporters, there's not a single receiver on the quote-unquote bubble in Tampa that I couldn't slot in Washington's offense right now and find a place for them to be extremely successful, especially if you look like a Curtis Samuel in Washington where, he looks really good when he's on the field, but he's still kind of on and off the field because they're kind of trying to monitor his health. Devin Tompkins is a guy, he doesn't have the pedigree or he doesn't have the establishment, the reputation that Curtis Samuel does, but he can do some similar things to what Curtis Samuel does for an offense. So you try to stash Devin Tompkins on your practice squad, and a Washington Commander squad comes calling and says, hey, we'll sign you to an active contract, put you on our 53-man roster. You don't have to sit in a practice squad. Tom Brady's great, but if you're Devin Thompkins from Utah State, so is being on an active roster. You know what I mean?
So making money.
It's going to be hard. I don't like I said, I don't know what decision they're going to make, but Devin looks good. He looked good in moments against the Miami Dolphins on Wednesday. We'll see what he does on Thursday, and then even more importantly, see what he does on Saturday.
Man, what a juxtaposition covering the Commanders offense versus the Bucs, eh? Just slightly 2 different things, just a little bit different.
Listen, I will tell you though, the Commanders offense has potential.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I'm leading the Jahan Dotson fan camp, traveling fan camp. So that's my guy.
Looks good. Yeah.
Bo, you were
Okay.
on the Washington going to be the number 1 defense in the NFL last year too. So
I had a few bold claims last year for sure.
I think
Scott, we don't have to harass the teams the guest covers, right? We would like David to
I'm
come
not
back.
I'm going to be
Hey,
honest.
look, I'm not on the team. You can harass all you want. I'm not on the team, so
It
you're not
legitimately took
insulting
me a second when David said the Commanders, like straight up. Like I really had to think about who. I was like, oh right,
Yeah,
right.
Your face went a little red when you were thinking about that.
Well, I was still thinking about the Ohio State stuff, to be completely honest. So it's taking me this long to get through. I think, Collin, I'm handling it pretty well.
That was meant to be a Redskins joke, actually.
Oh, I know. I was trying to blast past it.
Nice.
I mean, look, I'm in Arizona. I'm an Arizona State grad, so I mean, if it makes you feel any better, like
that does.
I'm just an OSU fan from being raised by a father who grew up outside of Columbus. I'm an Arizona State graduate, so my Sun Devils are my guys as well.
Okay, that takes a bit of the sting off. That
does
help.
We got to let David get out of here. He's been super generous for this time. I got one question though. I got to ask you before you dip out, David, if you're good with it.
Yeah.
Hainsey, it was a false alarm. He came up with cramps today. But I did sense a very immediate alarming feeling when that occurred. And I'm curious, this O-line, it kind of just dawned on me. I'm like, it's quite different right now. And there is a lot of uncertainty compared to last season. I'm curious what you saw today, and then maybe big picture, is this O-line gonna get it done? Are they gonna have to bring in someone? Do you think it goes that way? What are your thoughts generally on this offensive line unit, specifically on the interior? We don't got to worry about the tackles. Heading into this season,
I think as long as they stay healthy, they'll be okay. And I mean, you can say that about every unit across the National Football League, right? But when you talk about losing a guy like Ryan Jensen, you're not just talking about the physical ability and even the bond with the quarterback. You're talking about the leadership role that he carries on that offensive line and how he really brings. It's almost like a magnetic energy where when he's on the field, he brings those 5 guys together figuratively and literally. And so when he leaves, that's a big hole to fill. And Robert knew that, but he's been training all off season for that exact opportunity. Now he planned on coming in competing to be a starting left guard, not competing to be the starting center, but preparing for a starting job is preparing for a starting job. And at the end of the day, there's an old saying that what a lot of people will call luck is actually what happens when preparation meets opportunity. And this is an opportunity for Robert. And, I have it on good authority from other people that he has been spending all offseason. He's been working out with AQ Shipley and doing other things, preparing for that opportunity. So his standing with the team right now has nothing to do with luck. It's everything to do with him being ready when the door opened. And the door opened. Unfortunately, in this league, a lot of times when that door opens, it means that somebody else is getting injured. You don't wish that on anybody by any means. But I think he's holding his own. He's doing really well. We're hoping to talk to Coach Lori Locust tomorrow about trench play, not just about her D-line, how Akeem and Logan are fitting in, but also how her guys go against that line. Yeah. And so they're evaluating that as well, and kind of how from a defensive side, how they view those guys across the line of scrimmage. Obviously, it's all going to be good, you know what I mean? But how good and what she says, I think, will hold some weight. And then that left guard position, I mean, something that's not being talked about maybe as much as I expected it to is the fact that Nick Leverett has been getting time with the ones at left guard the last 2 days. Now, how much of that is Aaron Stinney not holding the position, and how much of that is Luke Gedeke maybe not catching up as fast as people had hoped? Or is it possible that Luke Gedeke is actually catching up, or maybe even surpassing Aaron Stinney, and basically they're putting Nick Leverett in there as a placeholder until they're ready to firmly put Gedeke in with the one. So that's definitely something worth monitoring because, as a rookie, and you guys know this, if they put Luke Gedeke in with the ones, and then next week they pull him out of there, what's going to happen? Everybody's going to start talking bust. They're going to start talking disappointment. They're going to start talking all these things. So if they have some internal confidence in Gedeke, okay, that's great, but let's ease him into it and let's make sure that when we put him in there, we're ready to leave him in there for the long haul. You don't want to put a rookie and take him out with the first team. So that's something that, again, I'm a little surprised not a lot of people are talking about Leverett being in there with the ones, but, there's a couple of different reasons why that could be happening. So maybe that's why it's not getting as much traction.
David off the top rope with the Jedi mind tricks, man. That's veteran savvy thinking, the fact that you go that deep. David, thanks so much for your time, dude. At DHarrison82 on Twitter. You got to follow him if you're into the NFL, especially if you have any interest in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers or the Washington Commanders. Commander Country, is it? Is that the SI Commanders?
It is Commander Country. I think it's si.com/Washington. I think that's what the URL is.
Gotcha. And you can find
Commanders.
Awesome. And then Locked On Bucks, probably the second best Buccaneers podcast going
Absolutely.
in the nation. Fantastic work, man. Gotta be your second listen every day, each and every day. You and James are killing it, man. So anyway, David Harrison, if you're not following him, you're an idiot, and you'll stay that way if you don't start. We'll talk to you soon, my dude. Thanks buddy.
Man.
Yeah,
Appreciate you guys. Have a good night. Thank you.
Great
You too,
insight,
bud.
my guy.
Thank you.
All right, gentlemen. Back to the regular cast of losers.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, that was great. It's so like the first day of training camp or like the first day of like this joint practice must have been just I just can't even imagine what was going through his head because there's just so many questions out there, right? And then you add in Hainsey going down for a little bit there. Like it's just a wild day. I'm sure he's kind of the fact that he's not just reeling after that.
Dude, and I want to talk Dog's best friend here with a question about K-Dot, and I will get to that, but I do want to kind of just keep discussing the O-line a little bit because I think it's like so I want to talk to you guys about this. Like we constantly talk about Brandon Thorne when we reference offensive line rankings and play because he's just, in my opinion, the most like objective. Well, he's the trench goat. Yeah.
Trench coat.
Yeah, Scott loves that one now.
It's really good.
It's really
man.
good.
Like it's
really
just
good.
super solid. What can I say?
I know, but it's like Scott must have missed that like last year, like 3
I
times.
did 100%. I did.
But anyway, so Brandon Thorne, I don't know how I missed it. He updated his O-line rankings, and the Buccaneers last year, I think they were top 3 overall, like maybe even 1 or 2. Like, don't quote me on that. They were 15th this year, coming into this year. And
what's that about? Because
so the Jensen injury
could be post Ryan Jensen, right?
Your entire interior of offensive line has changed, right? You go from having an all-pro, a top 3 guard in the whole league in Ali Marpet. He's gone. He was here last year. We've talked about it a lot.
You replaced him with Shaq Mason.
Shaq Mason's on the right side, so he replaced Alex Kappa.
Yeah, true.
So left side is going to be replaced with a second-round rookie, Luke Gedeke, or he's going to be replaced with a guy who started like 3 football games in his career at the NFL level in Aaron Stinney. Okay, so that's a big question mark. Even though Bucs fans, myself included, like what we've seen from Stinney.
I'm saying is that I'm not trying to disagree with the trench coat at all. I'm just saying going from Ali Marpet on one side and now having Shaq Mason on the other side, I don't know if that means you're dropping 12 spots, but
I like that and I agree. But Ali Marpet is like cream of the crop. Shaq Mason's damn good, but he ain't Ali Marpet.
No, clear.
But then you combine that with the other side, then and then the center position though, right? So these 2 crucial positions. You're going from this is probably the biggest thing for him, right? He's a huge Ryan Jensen guy. He calls him the best center in football.
Yeah,
he loves
that's it. Like I know it's a big drop, but maybe they're 5th with Jensen or something like that. Like he means that much, and especially if he's that big of a Jensen guy, like you could see that being the reason for that such a drop off, right?
For sure.
It's the O-line. Is the O-line's the thing that's going to keep you up at night? Hey,
yeah,
that's
and
it for this team,
and keep you up on the field though. Keep you up on the field, bro.
Yeah.
No, I mean just for you as like a Bucs fan.
Is
that the thing that you're gonna be? Because I feel like going into this, we were making fun of you being like, "Oh no, Gronk isn't here," and it's like, but you have so many weapons. Like,
no, and
this isn't that big of a deal.
And do you want
the line's big?
Thanks, Scott.
Fair.
But when I need to talk myself off that O-line led, I just fall back on how the insane clip that Jason Light is evaluating that position on. And I don't want to devalue the rest of the scouting department and John Spytek and all the team scouts. But whatever system Jason Light has in place to evaluate offensive linemen, that dude is the best in the league at drafting good ones, maybe next to Andrew Berry in Cleveland. But I don't think Andrew Berry drafted all those guys, so that's not even fair. And he finds gems like Ali Marpet in the 2nd, 3rd rounds, like Alex Kappa. And hopefully Luke Gedeke is one of those guys. And hopefully Robert Hainsey is one of those guys. And that would be 2 of the players potentially who are going to be sliding into those spots. The other thing that's important, right? The big reason why the interior offensive line is so important is because Tom Brady's your quarterback, right?
Yeah, yes.
So if it comes up the interior, you're fucked. Like he can do his little shiftiness in the pocket. He ain't running anywhere. He'll step up, step back. But if you're coming right in his face, there's nowhere Tom can hide. And he helps your O-line because he gets rid of the ball quickly. But that's why it arguably is even more paramount for this team in particular than any other with the lack of continuity along that interior. So just kind of spitballing here, speaking on behalf of Brandon Thorne, and just how it's kind of got me thinking, like maybe I've been a little too confident. Maybe we got to see what happens. But anyway.
I think that's all fair though, man. And the Brady aspect is huge, and you need to basically decide, like, okay, yeah, when the pressure comes up the middle, that's the worst as for his production and everything. Because, like you said, he can just do that little shimmy step up in the pocket when the outside rush comes, and it's like no one was even there. But he also knows, he's seen everything. He's gonna know how to get the ball out quickly. He's gonna know where a weak spot is, where to send help on the line. And so I hate to be like, oh yeah, but they have Tom Brady, or this is a thing, but they have Tom Brady, but it's all related and it matters. So he just he can cover so many holes, or at the very least put Band-Aids on them until you have like legit solutions. Right. So I don't think it's unimportant. I think it's very important, and you want to be as solid everywhere, but it's just like, I just trust that they'll figure it out enough for him to have enough time and give the ball to one of his insane receivers. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I love it.
Totally know. I totally know what you mean, and I would normally be with you, but pressure consistently getting to Tom Brady up the middle is probably the one trump card.
Totally.
Every defense has been trying to do that to him for years because it's the one thing that works.
For sure.
Right? So, and
that's fair. That's beyond fair. So
it's for me as like someone who's going to be watching so many Bucs games. I feel like that's the thing that I'll constantly, like, if it doesn't work out, we're just going to constantly be like, this could have been an awesome year, but
yeah,
you're right. This thing happened.
Well, and last week, Bo, like we were briefly discussing, Scotty's internet went out or something, but the JC Treader option, right? You got a Pro Bowl center who's unsigned right now. Do you roll the dice with Hainsey? Because if you bring in JC Treader, then he's your guy. Like, you got to start him. You ain't coming here to back up a second-year, third-round pick.
Right.
You know, converted from tackle in college. Like, that's just not going to happen. So you almost have to commit to him. So it's – anyway, I'm glad Hainsey isn't hurt. I had to drop a piece on it today about him potentially being hurt. They didn't know what the injury was. He was carted off. And then halfway through writing the piece, like Rappaport said, it just cramped. So I had to switch the whole vibe of the article. Shout out JC Allen, by the way, our friend of the show, over doing great work as always over at Pewter Report. Nice to have him tuning in with us.
Yeah, no kidding.
We'll have to get him on again soon. I actually hit him up to see if he wanted to get in here for the second half of the show, but fellow father like us, gentlemen, you know how that goes at bedtime. So that's all there is to it. Dog's best friend. What is good? Dog's best friend says Otten is impressing. How good do you think he can be? Seems better than advertised. Otten is impressing, and he's impressing in the ways that like so we had Lori Fitzpatrick of USA Today Touchdown Wire on, and she wrote a big piece about Kate Otten, and she doesn't cover the Bucs. She just wrote it because she was like, wait, this dude fell to the fourth round. What the fuck? Like, she was like, let me dive back into this. She's like, because she remembered him being such a talented prospect the year prior. And she was super optimistic about Kate Otten's future in the league, and she thought it was an absolute steal for the Bucs. Now, coming into training camp, fast forward to where we are now, Otten has done everything asked of him. All of his coaches are speaking of him in a really positive light. And I know some people might say, like, oh, what the hell does that mean? Coaches are always going to say that. It's not how it works with rookies around Tampa Bay. Like, they'll call them out. They'll say if they're behind. Like, that's one kind of refreshing aspect of how they handle the media often. Todd Bowles especially isn't praising anyone who doesn't deserve it. The thing I love about Otten is he is good at blocking and he's good at receiving. Like, he's well-rounded, right? He can be an inline blocker. He can be a good inline tight end, which fits this team. And the fact that everyone's talking about how quick he's picking things up, I mean, that's going to help him in a big way. I love the Rudolph signing because it takes pressure off Otten and it takes pressure off Brate. In terms of how good he is, I feel like I'm gonna say worst case he's going to be Austin Hooper. Worst case.
Really?
That's not bad.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah. And yeah, Austin Hooper was a Pro Bowler at a point. Like,
yeah.
A little short-lived, but that's what I'm going to say that for sure.
It's actually a pretty bold statement.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, kind of thinking about Hooper. Yeah.
Yeah. It's calling him a Pro Bowler and he's a fourth-round pick, right? Worst case.
Shit.
So,
yeah, seriously.
But I'm gonna stand by that one. I obviously dug into him a fair bit myself because I was thought there was a real good chance the Bucs would have interest in him come draft. So am able to say I myself was fond of what I saw as well. Speaking of guys who have impressed, Jalen Darden apparently has been looking good, and he's got to show it when the season starts. You can't even say when the pads come on. That dude's got to show it when the season starts. But apparently he continues to make plays, so that's nice to see and hear. And I hope he does well, man, because I've been hard on Darden after that. A lot of people have. So,
is there anything on Rachaad White?
Yeah, so Rachaad, the what I've learned from like working with guys like David at SI is like, when the depth chart comes out, you don't read too much into it because the way like how he just described that is a perfect example. If they declare like a young player too high up, then if they need to remove, they can't do that. It's disrespectful to the veteran. So that's a big element of it. Hey, Autumn, or is that Austin?
That's my dog situation. We have my buddy's dog now. Our son's asleep. There's a lot going on. Yeah, but that was Autumn actually. Autumn and Zion back there just playing one-on-one hoops. I think.
Nice.
That's good. Good timing. Good. I'm glad they're ratcheting down for the night. Oh wait.
I actually forget completely what I was saying. Real professional in me. I distracted myself. I can't even blame that on your dogs.
Don't worry.
I was going somewhere.
We're talking about Rachaad White.
Right. So yeah, Rachaad White's looked great. I think everyone who watched him in college, like Thor Nystrom was huge on Rachaad White as a pass catcher. He's doing that, but he's also apparently running the ball and he's got decent size to him. He wasn't the second back listed on the depth chart, but again, that's what I'm referring to. That's what I was getting at when I say that's the way she goes sometimes.
I feel like I've been seeing a few tweets about Gio impressing quite a lot.
I have too
lately, so.
Yeah, I mean, Gio's an interesting one, man, because if Rachaad White ascends and kills it, then all of a sudden, if he becomes that third down receiving back, then Gio's in trouble. But I'm still glad he's here. I would hate to see that because I kind of respect Gio for coming back, but
I'm pretty shocked he did. I mean, not that I knew what his other options were or anything like that, but doesn't it seem a little bit wild that he's still on the team?
Well, he came back before they drafted Rachaad White. So
yeah, I know, but
it doesn't. Yeah. It still just seems like a guy that would have just been there for a year and like,
I think he was banged up and missed time, and he didn't produce in a way he knows he's capable of playing in this offense with Tom Brady. Check down Tommy. Like I think he knows he could have lit it up in the right role, and now that Rojo was out of there, I think it made a lot of sense. And I think a big part of it
Yeah.
But anyway. I don't want to force any stuff. We're coming up on 50 minutes here, and we had a great guest. So I don't know if any of you guys have anything you want to hit on before we dip on out of here, but I think we're at that point of the show.
I just want to say, like, to get the guys that are actually on the ground and seeing what's going on and just the dynamic, like throughout the team and how everything works, like that's so great to hear about. You know what I mean? Like, David was talking a lot, like, and getting a lot of nuggets, I feel, out on the pod. I was like, that's important. And I know a lot of the, people don't answer questions that truthfully during the preseason. It's like, yeah, everybody loves their team and blah, blah, blah. But to speak to the guys that are actually seeing what's going on, seeing who's getting the reps and having a real pulse on the team is so great. It's just awesome to hear from our point of view, because we're just going off tweets, going off reports, right? And it's so much different to actually hear people who have actually seen what's going on. So great to have on the show.
Yeah, it's nice when you can ask him about a player and he's like, "Oh, I talked to him today and yesterday."
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Yeah, and we got other guys.
It's also like the observing of it, because like I know they get a lot of availability with the guys, but also there's so much nuance, so much reading between the lines of just seeing them perform on a play-to-play basis and seeing when the coaches are pulling them and what they're saying, like what you're able to overhear, what you're not able to overhear, what they're reacting to. It's just it's a tough job. So it's sweet to get them.
It's awesome.
For sure. And like, Bucs game day, we're credentialed. We got lots of guys. Logan's been at camp. Caleb Skinner, who's in the comments, has been at camp. And hopefully I won't be able to make it down to camp this year. It's a big summer for your boy, as you two know.
What do you mean? What's going on?
We're all reeling from that, actually.
Yeah, we're all hungover still. We had my bachelor party this weekend. None of us wore our shirts, so we'll have to bust those out at some point. One of us will.
I actually have it on underneath.
Oh, come on, show us this.
It's a quality shirt.
Yeah,
Mine's in the
Saw
wash
that
because
one.
I wore
Yeah.
after the bachelor party. It was one of the only T-shirts I had.
we'll show you
That's how the
folks. We'll
bachelor
get
party went.
we'll get that custom symbol circulating around the Bucs
Ca-
Twitter.
Fucking Captain Ron was in tough shape on Sunday, boys. Oh my god. The drive
Yeah.
home was fine, and then as soon as I got home, it was like, all right, you've reached a spot where you don't have to think anymore, and it's like just shut it down. It was unreal.
Yeah.
Yes, I hear that. Dog's best friend on the next Greg Olson. I like that one. Dog's best
Hey.
friend, man. You bringing the heat. Keep bringing these comments. That's good,
kidding.
man. We could call it worst
TBD.
case Austin Hooper, best case Greg Olson. I certainly like the comp in terms of the style of player. So
Yeah.
that's cool. Anyway, next week, not sure which guests we have. We're gonna keep that around, but there's a good chance we have a guest and some fresh. We'll definitely have fresh content to cover. So, as always, thanks so much to everyone who chimed in live on YouTube, watched on YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, whatever. Or if you're listening to this podcast on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts, we certainly appreciate it. Please make sure you're checking out all of our written coverage of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at Sports Illustrated's only website dedicated specifically to covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, bucsgameday.com. You'll find David's work there, my work there, a whole bunch of other great writers. And until next time, go Bucs.